Section 37 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Elizabeth Buchanan. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1, by Cao Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bencraft Joly. Chapter 17, Part 1. In the Ta Kuan Garden, Broad Vista, the merits of Pao-yü are put to the test by his being told to write devices for scrolls and tablets. Yuan Chun returns to the Ronghuo mansion on a visit to her parents, and offers her congratulations to them on the Feast of Lanterns on the 15th of the first moon. Jin Cheng, to resume our story, departed this life, and Pao-yü went on so unceasingly in his bitter lamentations that Li Kuei and the other servants had, for ever so long, an arduous task in trying to comfort him before he desisted, but on his return home he was still exceedingly disconsolate. Dowager lady Chia afforded monetary assistance to the amount of several tens of taels, and exclusive of this, she had sacrificial presents likewise got ready. Pao-yü went and paid a visit of condolence to the family, and after 7 days the funeral and burial took place, but there are no particulars about them which could be put on record. Pao-yü, however, continued to mourn his friend from day to day, and was incessant in his remembrance of him, but there was likewise no help for it, neither is it known after how many days he got over his grief. On this day, Chia Chen and the others came to tell Chia Cheng that the works in the garden had all been reported as completed, and that Mr. Chia She had already inspected them. "It only remains," they said, "for you, sir, to see them, and should there possibly be anything which is not proper, steps will be at once taken to effect the alterations, so that the tablets and scrolls may be conveniently written." After Chia Cheng had listened to these words, he pondered for a while. "These tablets and scrolls," he remarked, "present, however, a difficult task. According to the rites, we should, in order to obviate any shortcoming, request the imperial consort to deign and compose them. But if the honourable consort does not gaze upon the scenery with her own eyes, it will also be difficult for her to conceive its nature and indite upon it. And were we to wait until the arrival of her highness to request her to honour the grounds with a visit, before she composes the inscriptions, such a wide landscape with so many pavilions and arbours will, without one character in the way of a motto, albeit may abound with flowers, willows, rockeries and streams, nevertheless in no way be able to show off its points of beauty to advantage." The whole party of family companions who stood by smiled. "Your views, remarkable sir," they ventured, "are excellent, but we have now a proposal to make. Tablets and scrolls for every locality cannot on any account be dispensed with, but they could not likewise, by any means, be determined upon for good. We're now, for the time being, 2, 3, or 4 characters fixed upon, harmonising with the scenery, to carry out for form's sake the idea, and were they provisionally utilised as mottos for the lanterns, tablets and scrolls, and hung up, pending the arrival of her highness, and her visit through the grounds, when she could be requested to decide upon the devices, would not 2 exigencies be met with satisfactorily?" "Your views are perfectly correct," observed Chia Cheng, after he had heard the suggestion, "and we should go to day and have a look at the place, so as then to set to work to write the inscriptions, which if suitable can readily be used, and if unsuitable, Yü Ts'un can then be sent for and asked to compose fresh ones." The whole company smiled. "If you, sir, were to compose them to day," they ventured, "they are sure to be excellent, and what need will there be again to wait for Yü Ts'un?" "You people are not aware," Chia Cheng added with a smiling countenance, "that I've been, even in my young days, very mediocre in the composition of stanzas on flowers, birds, rockeries and streams; and now that I'm well up in years, and have moreover the fatigue and trouble of my official duties, I've become, in literary compositions like these, which require a light heart and gladsome mood, still more inapt. Were I even to succeed in composing any, they will unavoidably be so doltish and forced that they would contrariwise be instrumental in making the flowers, trees, gardens, and pavilions, through their demerits, lose in beauty and present instead no pleasing feature." "This wouldn't anyhow matter," remonstrated all the family companions, "for after perusing them, we can all decide upon them together, each one of us recommending those he thinks best, which if excellent can be kept, and if faulty can be discarded, and there's nothing unfeasible about this." "This proposal is most apposite," rejoined Chia Cheng. "What's more, the weather is, I rejoice, fine to day, so let's all go in a company and have a look." Saying this, he stood up and went forward at the head of the whole party, while Chia Chen betook himself in advance into the garden to let every one know of their coming.
As luck would have it, Pao-yü, for he had been these last few days thinking of Ch'in Chung, and so ceaselessly sad and wounded at heart, that dowager lady Chia had frequently directed the servants to take him into the new garden to play,
made his entrance just at this very time, and suddenly became aware of the arrival of Chia Chen, who said to him with a smile: "Don't you yet run away as fast as you can? Mr. Chia Cheng will be coming in a while." At these words, Pao-yü led off his nurse and the youths, and rushed at once out of the garden, like a streak of smoke; but as he turned a corner, he came face to face with Chia Cheng, who was advancing towards that direction, at the head of all the visitors; and as he had no time to get out of the way, the only course open to him was to stand on one side. Chia Cheng had, of late, heard the tutor extol him by saying that he displayed special ability in rhyming antithetical lines, and that although he did not like to read his books, he nevertheless possessed some depraved talents, and hence it was that he was induced at this moment to promptly bid him follow him into the garden, with the intent of putting him to the test. Pao-yü could not make out what his object was, but he was compelled to follow. As soon as they reached the garden gate, and he caught sight of Chia Chen standing on one side along with several managers: "See that the garden gate is closed for a time," Chia Cheng exclaimed, "for we'll first see the outside and then go in." Chia Chen directed a servant to close the gate, and Chia Cheng first looked straight ahead of him, toward the gate, and espied on the same side as the main entrance a suite of 5 apartments. Above, the cylindrical tiles resembled the backs of mud eels. The doors, railings, windows and frames were all finely carved with designs of the new fashion, and were painted neither in vermilion nor in white colours. The whole extent of the walls was of polished bricks of uniform colour, while below, the white marble on the terrace and steps was engraved with western foreign designs, and when he came to look to the right and to the left, everything was white as snow. At the foot of the whitewashed walls, tiger skin pebbles were, without regard to pattern, promiscuously inserted in the earth in such a way as of their own selves to form streaks. Nothing fell in with the custom of gaudiness and display so much in vogue, so that he naturally felt full of delight, and when he forthwith asked that the gate should be thrown open, all that met their eyes was a long stretch of verdant hills, which shut in the view in front of them. "What a fine hill! What a pretty hill!" exclaimed all the companions with one voice. "Were it not for this one hill," Chia Cheng explained,
"whatever scenery is contained in it would clearly strike the eye, as soon as one entered the garden; and what pleasure would that have been?"
"Quite so," rejoined all of them, "but without large hills and ravines in one's breast (liberal capacities), how could one attain such imagination?" After the conclusion of this remark, they cast a glance ahead of them, and perceived white rugged rocks looking either like goblins or resembling savage beasts, lying either crossways or in horizontal or upright positions, on the surface of which grew moss and lichen with mottled hues, or parasitic plants which screened off the light, while, slightly visible, wound among the rocks a narrow pathway like the intestines of a sheep. "If we were now to go and stroll along by this narrow path," Chia Cheng suggested, and to come out from over there on our return, we shall have been able to see the whole grounds." Having finished speaking, he asked Chia Chen to lead the way, and he himself, leaning on Pao-yü, walked into the gorge with leisurely step. Raising his head, he suddenly beheld on the hill a block of stone as white as the surface of a looking-glass, in a sight which was, in very deed, suitable to be left for an inscription, as it was bound to meet the eye. "Gentlemen," Chia Cheng observed as he turned his head round and smiled, "please look at this spot. What name will it be fit to give it?" When the company heard this remark, some maintained that the two words "heaped verdure" should be written, and others upheld that the device should be "embroidered hill." Others again suggested "vying with Hsiang Lu," and others recommended "the small Zhong Nan," and various kinds of names were proposed, which did not fall short of several tens. All the visitors had been, it must be explained, aware at an early period of the fact that Chia Cheng meant to put Pao-yü's ability to the test, and for this reason they merely proposed a few combinations in common use; but of this intention Pao-yü himself was likewise cognizant. After listening to the suggestions, Chia Cheng forthwith turned his head round, and bade Pao-yü think of some motto. "I've often heard," Pao-yü replied, "that writers of old opine that it's better to quote an old saying than to compose a new one, and that an old engraving excels in every respect an engraving of the present day. What's more, this place doesn't constitute the main hill or the chief feature of the scenery, and is really no site where any inscription should be put, as it no more than constitutes the first step in the inspection of the landscape. Won't it be well to employ the exact text of an old writer, consisting of 'a tortuous path leading to a secluded nook'? This line of past days would, if inscribed, be in fact liberal to boot." After listening to the proposed line, they all sang its praise. "First rate! Excellent!" they cried. "The natural talents of your second son, dear friend, are lofty. His mental capacity is astute. He is unlike ourselves, who have read books but are simple fools." "You shouldn't," urged Chia Cheng smilingly, "heap upon him excessive praise. He's young in years, and merely knows one thing, which he turns to the use of 10 purposes. You should laugh at him, that's all; but we can by and by choose some device." As he spoke, he entered the cave, where he perceived beautiful trees with thick foliage, quaint flowers in lustrous bloom, while a line of limpid stream emanated out of a deep recess among the flowers and trees and oozed down through the crevice of the rock. Progressing several steps further in, they gradually faced the northern side, where a stretch of level ground extended far and wide, on each side of which soared lofty buildings, intruding themselves into the skies, whose carved rafters and engraved balustrades nestled entirely among the depressions of the hills and the tops of the trees. They lowered their eyes and looked, and beheld a pure stream flowing like jade, stone steps traversing the clouds, a balustrade of white marble encircling the pond in its embrace, and a stone bridge with 3 archways, the animals upon which had faces disgorging water from their mouths. A pavilion stood on the bridge, and in this pavilion Chia Chen and the whole party went and sat. "Gentlemen," he inquired, "what shall we write about this?" "In the record," they all replied, "of 'the drunken old man's pavilion,' written in days of old by Weiyuan, appears this line: 'There is a pavilion pinioned like.' So let us call this 'the pinioned like pavilion,' and finish."
"Pinioned like," observed Chia Cheng smiling, "is indeed excellent; but this pavilion is constructed over the water, and there should, after all, be some allusion to the water in the designation."
"My humble opinion is that of the line in Weiyuan's work: 'The water drips from between the 2 peaks.' We should only make use of that single word, 'drips.'" "First rate!" rejoined one of the visitors. "Capital! But what would really be appropriate are the two characters dripping jade-like." Chia Cheng pulled at his moustache, as he gave way to reflection; after which he asked Pao-yü to also propose one himself. "What you, sir, suggested a while back," replied Pao-yü, "will do very well; but if we were now to sift the matter thoroughly, the use of the single word 'drip' by Weiyuan in his composition about the Niang spring would appear quite apposite, while the application, also on this occasion, to this spring, of the character 'drip' would be found not quite suitable. Moreover, seeing that this place is intended as a separate residence for the imperial consort on her visit to her parents, it is likewise imperative that we should comply with all the principles of etiquette, so that were words of this kind to be used, they would besides be coarse and inappropriate; and may it please you to fix upon something else more recondite and abstruse." "What do you, gentlemen, think of this argument?" Chia Cheng remarked sneeringly. "A little while ago, when the whole company devised something original, you observed that it would be better to quote an old device; and now that we have quoted an old motto, you again maintain that it's coarse and inappropriate. But you had better give us one of yours." "If the two characters 'dripping jade-like' are to be used," Pao-yü explained, "it would be better then to employ the two words 'penetrating fragrance,' which would be unique and excellent, wouldn't they?" Chia Cheng pulled his moustache, nodded his head, and did not utter a word; whereupon the whole party hastily pressed forward with one voice to eulogise Pao-yü's acquirements as extraordinary. "The selection of two characters for the tablet is an easy matter," suggested Chia Cheng; "but now go on and compose a pair of antithetical phrases, with 7 words in each." Pao-yü cast a glance round the four quarters, when an idea came into his head, and he went on to recite: "The willows, which enclose the shore, the green borrow from 3 bamboos. On banks apart, the flowers asunder grow, yet one perfume they give." Upon hearing these lines, Chia Cheng gave a faint smile as he nodded his head, whilst the whole party went on again to be effusive in their praise. But forthwith they issued from the pavilions, and crossed the pond, contemplating with close attention each elevation, each stone, each flower, or each tree. And as suddenly they raised their heads, they caught sight in front of them of a line of white wall, of numbers of columns, and beautiful cottages where flourished hundreds and thousands of verdant bamboos, which screened off the rays of the sun. "What a lovely place!" they one and all exclaimed. Section 37.